Good morning. We'll get started here. I'll start off by, first of all, I want to thank everyone in the room for the job that you guys do, for covering our team, the great stories about our players, our team, our organization that get out in the community in particular in terms of what they do, our players, and how they serve our community, I think is important and much appreciated on my end. Good season overall, obviously not the result, the ultimate goal that we were looking to accomplish. When you can have the success that we've had through 6 out of 7 years in the playoffs, I think is significant and hard to do, as well as 4 AFC East titles and now 5+ years of 10+ wins is impressive and did not come easy. So I applaud the organization, all involved, the team, the players, the coaching staff, and we look forward to continuing to reach and strive for that ultimate goal of winning a world championship. With that, I'll turn it over to you and your questions.
Sean, you usually say that the final game of the year tells you what you need to know about your football team. So what do you take away from the other day?
Well, I thought there were opportunities the other day. There really were, and it's crazy to say this, but when you look at it, we had opportunities to win the game, probably even more so than they did, even though they ended up winning it. Opportunities down the stretch that one more throw, one more kick, one more stop defensively. That said, there were certainly things in the game that did not go our way and did not go well enough for us to win the game. So I don't think you start by tearing. This is not a situation where you strip it down to the studs. You start all over. I mean, we've done a lot of good things, and the players have done a lot of good things. I think you really start with understanding the success that we've had and how we've gotten it, and then you make tweaks along the way to try and get ourselves to become world champions, and that's why we came here. We came here to win, and win is what we've done, quite honestly. We have not reached that ultimate goal, however, in terms of why we came here, and we will work tirelessly to do that.
Sean, you just said you don't tear it down and rebuild it, but you got some drywall to replace here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a lot of guys that are free agents. Would you consider this a sizable off-season chore, especially with your salary cap situation?
Where we're at with it, I feel like, we've been kind of in that position last year, this season, a little bit again, and then going into next season with the amount of free agents that we do have on our roster. So every year you've got to start over. Every year you have to evaluate your roster. We're in the process of just starting that this morning. Every year is a challenge, right, to figure out how to put it back together again to get yourself in position to win. That's why there's no guarantees when you start a season that it's going to be, well, you just pick up where you left off. It's not how this league works. So I think the biggest thing we can do is start over again from a standpoint of the process starts over again, and we're honest and true and genuine with our evaluations of personnel, and then you move forward and trying to put it together again. And Brandon's done, along with the personnel staff and our coaching staff, a great job of finding ways to build it and put it together each year. I mean, to sustain it for now 5 straight years, 6 straight years, whatever it's been, 6 out of 7. I think that's one of the hardest things to do in sports. And I think that when you can do that is when you give yourself a chance to win a championship. And that's what we've done, and that's what we're going to continue to try and do.
After the Bengals game last year, we talked a lot about this defensive line being, not producing. It's the same talking point that you had the other day. What has gone wrong in that room because in these big moments because of the lack of production in the biggest moments? Yeah,
I understand where you're coming from on that. And when you look at going into the playoffs the last 2 seasons, the defensive line last year was banged up pretty good going into the game. This year, one of our healthier what I would say is one of our healthier units on defense, one of our healthier positions on defense. So it's never one position. It's a full team deal, right? And so could we have played better? Could we have coached better? Absolutely. And we look hard at that. I think the lessons, though, that you learn through that are what benefits you moving forward.
Sean, do you plan on hiring a defensive play caller / coordinator this offseason?
Yes, we'll get into, those situations, if you will. I know there's some buzz out there already on some things, and it's so early. I just got done last night with the final exit interviews with the players, and still a couple trickling in this morning to do that with. And with the way the rules are now, with the coaching and who can go and who can't, and it's almost like free agency. And so there's a lot of moving pieces, and it happens fast. So, but right now, I'm not going to get into staff moves and adjustments or what have you.
Can we at least ask you, your thoughts on the job that Joe Brady did? And, Josh endorsed him yesterday at his end of season.
Yeah, I thought
Where do
Josh-
things stand with that?
Go ahead. With Joe? Yeah, so, we'll again, just like the other ones, Adam, that'll happen in due time with respect to what we do with that position, evaluating that position as well as others, like is natural this time of year. And then, but to your question specific to Joe, I thought Joe did a really nice job, right, coming in and building great communication, collaboration, a vibe with Josh, and then I think you saw the results of that through the course of, I believe it was 6 games, and so I thought he did a very, very nice job in that regard.
How would you assess how special teams was overall this season?
I thought we were good at times. I thought we were inconsistent at times, though, overall, John, and the thing I love about Coach Smiley is that when you coach special teams, sometimes you get kind of the roster pared down, and when you're dealing with injuries, and then what happens with what's left, and you're putting together, hey, what's left, and who do I have to use out there, on a week-to-week basis. Coach Smiley and Coach Harkey did a phenomenal job of taking those roster decisions week to week and making the most of it. And so I thought at times we were really good, and there's other times where we gave up some plays that we really can't afford to give up.
To follow up on Joe Brady, a couple of years ago, it was very important to weigh in Josh's opinion. He was lobbying for Ken Dorsey. What about now? Just what does Josh's opinion mean on offensive coordinator? He said he would like to have Joe Brady back.
Yeah, it's big. It's big. You got to have the buy-in from your franchise quarterback, or any quarterback for that matter. And certainly at the end of the day, it'll be my decision. And I respect Josh's opinion. Respect his position on it, and it does factor into the overall equation.
Sean, you said you got to wait on on bringing staff in, but for you to look back a little bit on what it was like for you to call the plays this year, was it what you thought? Does it feel like it was? It's different than when you did that before, when you weren't the head coach. How did you think it went for you?
Well, I'll tell you, I was able to get back into the seat a little bit, and really. Thanks to our defensive staff and our staff overall, they were phenomenal this year. Probably the best staff we've had, I believe, in terms of just professionalism and the execution of the job. And the results were the results, by in part because of what they did and how they coached and how they handled themselves. And I'm extremely grateful for that. As it relates to my position, I felt like overall it was knocking some rust off early, maybe just getting back into the seat of doing it again, but felt very comfortable back in that position, and certainly more work on one's plate when you do that, when you take on a dual role like that, and that'll be evaluated as I go forward here and we go forward.
Sean, can you pinpoint maybe why at the beginning of the season we saw Steph, explode like 5 out of the first 6 games or something, goes over 100 yards, and then as the season went along, that production really dropped. Can you pinpoint anything why that might have been the case?
I can't say in particular why specifically, Heather. If I could, I would, we would flip it back that way, right, to the way it started early in the year. Sometimes defenses evolve. Sometimes, there's more things on tape through the course of a season, and people copy then what's on tape. And so, listen, Steph's a great player. I love Steph, and he was a phenomenal teammate. And so, I like how the offense found some rhythm, though, under Joe, and Steph got back involved again at times there, especially down the stretch. And I think, at least in the last 2 of 3 games, so to speak.
Sean, from a big picture perspective, given that you've reached and achieved that sustained success with the 5, with the 5 playoff, getting to the playoffs 5 straight years, how much do you need to validate that by getting beyond the division round, to getting beyond the AFC Championship? How much more important is it to validate what you've achieved here with beyond what you've done so far?
That's what I go to bed thinking about in terms of taking another step, really 2 steps, John. And like I've told you, you know me. I'm pretty goal oriented, and the ultimate goal is winning a world championship, and doing that for Bills Mafia, doing that for Terry and Kim, doing that for people in Western New York. That winning mindset, and that's what this is all about. That's what you saw from our team when we sat at 6-6, and we were able to rally and get to where we got to this year, was that winner's mindset. And that's what I want everybody to have, and that's what I want for everyone to feel, what it does feel like to get to a Super Bowl again and win it. And that's the ultimate goal that I have. That's the ultimate goal of our staff, our organization, Terry and Kim. And I'm extremely proud of what we've accomplished, but not in any way satisfied or going to get complacent with where we're at. Every year you start over, and every year that fire, I can tell you and promise you, that fire burns within me as bright as it did the year before, if not more so. So, we're disappointed, yes, but not broken.
Reconcile the second half of the season and all the things that went well that you're proud of and rallying against needing to rally to begin with and getting to 6-6.
Yeah, that's a critical piece of the evaluation, Tim. And when you go back to it, and this is, even though we did what we did, it's like, how did we get there? We should have, in my mind, as a coach and confident in our abilities and our players' abilities, is we should have never gotten there to begin with. And so it's lessons learned from that, which I won't obviously get into the details on that now, but it's, hey, let's make sure we don't get into that spot again. Now, there's things that cause some of that too, that are sometimes, not always directly within your control. Some of it's injury related, and I felt like we were more banged up than what I would have liked a little bit last year and as well this year. That's no excuse. We've got to kind of dive into that a little bit deeper in terms of why, right? Why is that happening, just as one piece? But overall, it's a lot of valuable lessons that, as a staff, we can take from that earlier part of the season. I believe some of our players can take from that earlier part of the season as well. And some of that got corrected, which was good to see during the season, where what went wrong early in the year was executed better, I'll say, in the back half of the season.
What are some broad stroke examples you can give? I know you don't want to give details, but what broad stroke things can you give us as to?
Well, I think number one is taking care of the football, right? You turn the ball over, it's hard to win games. I would say, closing out games. I think those 2 things combined were some of the, hey, we're a play away in some of those six losses early in the year. That's just early on and without diving back into it. But over the bye week, that was some of what we came out of it with was, hey, we take care of the football, we're really hard to beat, which is not anything earth-shattering, right? And just overall evolving as an offense, evolving as a defense, special teams no different. But that's where we got to start game 1 next season, is with that understanding and that awareness.
How do you balance that when you're eliminated in a game where you didn't turn the ball over at all, and you look at some of the bigger stats, like no explosive plays for your offense? You obviously dominated the possession,
Yeah.
But like, was that a stylistic choice to go into that game and try to control the clock and like limit the time maybe the defense, which was banged up, was on the field?
Not directly. I mean, it was every week you go into a game with an overall plan, right? Of, hey, this is how we feel like we need to play, how we feel like we need to manage a game. Never once, though, is it about, hey, slow the clock down, let's just do this and try and win 10-9. It's this is how we play, but within this game, let's be mindful of these areas, and then we put together a plan that bakes all that together. And you don't want to put clamps on a situation where you're saying, hey, don't throw it down the field, don't throw it. It's play the game, right? Play the game and play free and go for it. And I think that's, again, a mindset that our team really embraced down the stretch of prepare your tail off, mentally go for it, and coach to win, play to win. That's what I want, that's what we want, and that's what happened through the course of the last 6 weeks. No different in the game. And that's, to me, a winner's mentality. And you have to have that most of the time, before you get the results you're looking for. And so I just think that's the right way to approach it. That's the type of mindset I feel like leads to winning and winning championships. And so I think that's very powerful and enables our players to be themselves and show us their true personalities.
You mentioned a player or two here or there in your opening answer, and the game the other night maybe goes differently. That's been true the last 2 times you've played this team in the postseason now against Kansas City. And you can't predict who you're going to see in the playoffs in the future, but with that quarterback, chances are the road to the Super Bowl goes through Kansas City. It's been true 6 years in a row now. What has to happen against that particular opponent in those close games that they go differently, that the player 2 is made by you guys?
Yeah, well, you're right, Jay, and we were, when you look back to the AFC Championship game, our first playoff meeting with Kansas City, it wasn't close, right? It really wasn't. They were different. We were at a different point. They were at a different point, and now it's not. It is close, and I think that shows you the strides we've made over the years. But to your point, we have to find ways to make those plays. We have to find ways to put them in position to make those plays. So it's not just one thing. But to me, it starts with that belief. And I'm not saying we didn't have that, but what I'm saying is you got to go for it, right? You got to have that mindset in order to get that result. You got to believe in yourself, believe in the team, and players have to be put in position, and the players certainly need to make those plays. So there's no magic to it, but I believe it starts with having that winner's mindset.
Do you need to, in your
Von Miller, how confident are you that he can get to a level of production he was at pre-injury?
Yeah, it's I listen to our trainers, I listen to Von, and what I believe that I saw was his best game was the last game of the season, was the Kansas City game a few nights ago, and my hope is that is a good direction for where we pick up at the beginning of next season. What he came back from and the way he worked certainly was impressive. Do I wish he was healthier through the course of the body of the season? Absolutely. But nobody worked harder to get himself back. And my hope is that he is healthy at the beginning of next season and ready to really play his best football, and that this was another stepping stone.
When you look at your offense, do you think that you lacked explosion in the passing game this year? What I mean by that, you've got guys that do well, Shakir, Diggs, underneath, intermediate stuff. Are you lacking that explosive nature, and is that going to be a focal point maybe in the offseason here?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be efficient, you want to be explosive. It's hard to be both, right? So it's hard to serve two masters. And that being said, however, you need to create explosive plays in order to, that's, if you look at and you study the game, that's when you look at scoring points, usually a scoring drive has baked into it an explosive run or an explosive pass. And so, or a big time penalty, say on the defense, right? So I understand that, we understand that, and that's a part of us moving forward as we look at our roster and we look at player acquisition, something that we need to take a hard look at.
You have a lot of holes to fill, especially on the defensive side of things. With Trey White coming back, how would that bode well with Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas? What is the plan with that?
Yeah, again, I think you just got to take it one day at a time now. No different in Von's situation with Trey's situation. You're talking about a player who is very, very talented. Trey's done a lot of great things here. He's our, my first draft pick at least, and but he's gone through two serious injuries right now, two very significant injuries, and so we just need to take it one day at a time and full confidence that he'll be fine. But at the same time, when he gets out there, I think we'll know more as to how he's going to look and how he's going to feel and what level of ability to contribute to our team he'll have. So just, again, out of respect for Trey, just right now, one day at a time.
Sean, you talk about explosive. Go ahead, somebody else.
No, it's okay. Mookie got it for me.
He did?
Thanks, Mookie.
You talk about explosive plays, and also I know, running the ball and all that goes into it. When you evaluate the offensive coordinator job, whether it's Joe or someone else, can you take us into, is it, hey, I'm going to hire somebody who they're going to kind of do things the way I envision this working for us, or taking what they bring and say, hey, this is my offense, how I do it, you saying that fits with our team? I guess the way I'd like to say this is there's a thought from some fans that Sean McDermott's a defensive coach, conservative, he wants to dial it back, that kind of thing. And I'd like you to kind of speak about that and what your role is there.
I can promise you that's not the case. Yes, I'm a defensive coach, but I'm going to say this, and we just lost to Andy, but I cut my teeth around Andy Reid, who is a pass first, you throw to win, and that has been my philosophy since day one, pretty much here, especially since Josh has grown into the player and the quarterback that he has, really starting in 19 after Josh's first season. So that has been my philosophy since that year in particular, and I believe in that. Now, I do believe, though, that you've got to be able to control the line of scrimmage and run when you need to run. And I like the way that we've been able to blend that in particular this season. I think Coach Cromer, Coach Brady have done a really nice job along with the offensive line and the pieces that Brandon brought in. I thought this was our best year in that regard. I think it helps a quarterback, quite honestly, being able to do both, being a two-dimensional. You saw that the other night when we were giving up some of those runs. They were allowed to be a two-dimensional offense, and that made it even harder to defend. So I think it is important that we have that ability to run the football, in particular in Western New York, when there's going to be not many where Josh can't throw situations weather-wise. We have that advantage, obviously, but overall, you just never know what you're going to come across from a defensive look standpoint or a weather standpoint, and you've got to be able to do it.
You talked about being banged up this season. Josh talked about how much his shoulder impacted him this year. Do you feel like that at times, getting to that 6-6 point, that impacted the offense where his shoulder was?
Well, it wasn't ideal. Unfortunately, you never want your quarterback or any player for that matter to get banged up. It happens, and there was probably, I don't know the numbers on it, but it seemed like a significant amount of backup quarterbacks, number 2, number 3 quarterbacks playing in the league this year, which is to me a warning sign for us of, hey, you better make sure in training camp, and we do, right, that you've got that other quarterback ready to go. And so, just like any player, we had players out there the other night who were playing but were maybe inhibited a little bit in terms of their ability to execute because of the injuries they were dealing with. And it's all part of the game. It really is, and you never want that to be the case, but proud of how Josh, in this case, where the guys worked through it, and you go forward. And so the goal is to get to the playoffs as healthy as possible. And I think, again, that's one of the areas we need to look at, because we have experienced going into that 2 years in a row, a little banged up, maybe more than we would have liked, ideally. And so you look at it, you look at everything, like you do the roster and so on and so forth.
Is that looking at like how
Sean,
you're,
you talked earlier in the year about wanting to limit Josh's contact, his maybe amount of running, and obviously that's taken different twists and turns during the season. Can you assess kind of how that attempt went this season, and then maybe what you learned about trying to move the approach in that direction?
Yeah, very, very proud of Josh, very proud of Joe, and very proud of Josh from the standpoint of really learning how, and this is where it really, the ownership that he has taken with that. You saw the urgency down the stretch. You saw him going for it. You saw him willing this team to win. Miami game in particular, this past game in particular, that's what he's going to do. But I also think he is maturing enough to the point of, hey, I understand how to play the position, and I understand how to play the position as it relates to my ability to move and be mobile, but I also understand I've got to be healthy enough, as we just discussed, down the stretch, so I can do that and lower my shoulder when I need it. The Miami third down and whatever it was, conversion, great example of that. Like, if you're not healthy enough to do that then, maybe we don't convert that, maybe we don't win. So it's all a piece of it, and I think, again, his understanding of that, we're getting closer and closer to that. He gets it, and so I'm proud of him for that.
What's Bobby Babich meant to your staff?
Good coach. Bobby and I have been together a number of years, going back to our time together in Carolina. And, you know, his dad was with us for a number of years here, and good family. Bobby's a good coach. He's developed players, and I think, you know, when you evaluate a coach, it's, are you taking what you have and making it better? And I think it doesn't need to get any more complex than that, and Bobby's done that.
How would you evaluate James Cook's first season as your team's top ball carrier?
How would I evaluate James's first season?
James Cook in his first
Yeah.
season as your team's top ball
Yeah,
carrier.
I think he's done a really good job. He really has. You talk about development of players, right? That is coaches' responsibilities and players' responsibilities as well. And I think James, where you look at where he was in year one to where he was in year two, difference, right? And to come in and say, here's a young man that maybe wasn't the primary back at Georgia, but became the primary back this season in his second year in the NFL for the Buffalo Bills. I thought that was very impressive. And are there still more hurdles to jump over? Yes. And still more growth? Yes. And I think he is primed and prepared to do that this offseason.
What's been the message from Terry after this game, this season, when you spoke to him?
Yeah, very, very supportive. We have great lines of communication with Terry, and he's disappointed like we are, but he's just very supportive, and he understands how hard it is to try and get to that ultimate goal, and so I couldn't ask for a better owner.
Have you felt any shift in, for lack of a better term, approval rating with him?
Not to my knowledge, no, and that's a question for him, but.
Difficult as it was to make a coaching change mid-season. And I think that might be the first time you've done so in your 7 years here. What did you get out of that? What did you learn about yourself and this team about dealing at a point of where the season was in crisis?
What did I learn about myself or the team? Or
What did you learn from making that decision at that time, and how you responded at a moment of crisis when something needed to shift?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't honestly a decision I wanted to make in terms of there's someone's livelihood at stake and their family and people I care deeply about, like I do my entire staff. But my job is to do what is best for the team, and that's what I felt I needed to do that was best for the team, and that's what I did. So that's what I did. So I think that's what I am tasked to do as the head coach of this team, and that's what the job calls for. So if I don't do that, then I'm not serving the team, the organization, or the community the right way, and that's something I take very very personally.
Coach, talk about the success of James Cook and then converting those third and shorts. It's because your O-line, and that's something you ain't got to worry about going into next year. Just care to talk about how well your O-line played this season.
Yeah, again, very impressed. And going back to Josh's running question, I think, Thad, you had that. Coach Cromer's been very understanding of that as well, like when he shaped the run game each week and how much we want to expose Josh through a designed run standpoint. With the offensive line and our running game, this was probably our best season. And it starts with having good players up front that are healthy through, I think, the entirety of the season. So, give credit to our medical staff for that, to those players, their chemistry. They did a great job. And then the ability to teach during the week of, hey, this run, hey, we're not just going to run it over here, but the run is designed to go exactly to this specific point. And then everyone being on that alignment, everyone being on the same page, the backs, the tight ends, the receivers, and that understanding is what you saw from an execution on Sundays. And that goes back to, again, the types of players you have, the types of coaches you have, their ability to communicate, and that was fun to watch.
Sean, before the season, you gave Tyler Bass, well, not you, but he was given a contract extension. He missed 3 kicks in the postseason. One I know was blocked, but I'm imagining you can't be too happy because you've got to have a kicker in this league who's reliable. Just have you figured out what's gone wrong with? Because he didn't have a great season. He missed a few in the regular season.
Yeah, no, I know where you're coming from on that, Sal, and I would just tell you that I am confident in Tyler, and I'll start there and I'll end there. But in between those two is, to me, of yes, there were some kicks we need to make, no doubt about it. He knows that, and there's no one that works harder at it than he does, and takes more pride in the work that he puts in and his job to perform at the highest levels that he can for the team and his teammates. He's deeply invested in his teammates and this team, and I'm very confident that he's going to do what's necessary this offseason to get himself just right.
Micah Hyde has been here for your entire tenure. Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty with Micah. He said yesterday he needs to evaluate things. Regardless of what happens, what has he meant to you and to the organization?
Oh, man, where do you want to begin? I mean, you come here and you have your first opportunity for a job, and you're trying to get the right people. When we got here, we didn't have much cap space. Credit Jim Overdorf at the time for his creativity with that, and you try and find the right people to start your program with. Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, just to name a few, and there's many even beyond that are no longer here, even that have just helped shape this thing, help get it off the ground, and so many people I'm indebted to for that. But Micah and Jordan, and it's like when you say one, you got to say the other, right? It's, watching them run out of the tunnel, driving to the game the other day, I thought to myself, I knew the defense was going to get announced. It was their turn. And I'm thinking to myself, this is another opportunity, knowing that we weren't going to have another home game because Baltimore had won. One last time for these two to run out of the tunnel again and hear their names called. And listen, as competitors, and it's a different life when you're performing and you're competing, and all your whole entire life you're up here from a standpoint of what an elite athlete you are, and you're competing at this level, and all of a sudden that goes away. In certain situations, as you said, Mike is evaluating, and it's just it's different. But I was extremely proud of watching those guys, those two, and their careers and how they handle themselves as professionals. I know there were some times where after games you guys were getting on them and whatnot, but I think by and large you guys know who they are as human beings, what their character is, and what they're all about, and the way that they handle themselves with class in our community really says a lot about who they are and how they've helped us grow as an organization.
Sean, you brought in a lot of free agents this past offseason. Did you feel like that group made the impact that you expected them to, or your team needed them to make this season?
If you want to give me some names, I don't.
You got Leonard Floyd, Trevor Field, Deontay Hardy,
Yeah.
players like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that are going to work out, and there's just like draft. There's some that aren't going to work out. It's not a perfect science, an exact science in that regard. So, the names you mentioned, among others, and I thought the draft contributions we had, in particular Dalton and Saibo. We were just talking about our offense before I came down here, and to see those two young players have that level of contributions for our team. Saibo all season long, Dalton a little bit more back half, say. But just to watch Dalton, and again, I'm leaving some names out here, but to watch Dalton, again, like Josh, trying to will his way for our team to win. He's been banged up this season as well, and just here's a rookie making those special plays Sunday night there, and you're going, he gets it, and I'm excited about the future for him and Josh and their rapport and what they can produce and become on that field.
What's your overview on the receiving group? You've talked about a lot of passing game philosophy here.
Yeah.
But what about the group? And I know that Gabe being a free agent, but what's just your heading into the offseason snapshot of that room?
Well, I think overall, there were some new faces in that room this year. There were some younger players. There were some veteran free agents, as Alex mentioned, and I thought the guys hung together. And some overall, you're looking at, hey, do we have enough production? And I think there are times that we did, and then there's other times we didn't. But overall, it's not just catching the ball. It's blocking the running game. It's playing special teams, and I thought overall they did some really good things.
Sean,
Yeah.
first couple of years have been, rocky maybe. What's your hope that he can, in year 3, blossom into what you guys were hoping you'd get out of a first-round pick?
Yeah, I mean, you saw him make the play the other night, and that's kind of been Jay, his career, his short career to this point, where he makes a play, a special play here and there. So he has flashed. Now what we've got to get a better feel for is, can he do that on a more consistent basis, right? Can he execute on a more consistent basis for us? And so this year a little banged up. Just overall, he needs to continue to up his game, quite honestly, and we'll see how he factors into what we're doing defensively.
Coach, another player that has flashed in this last season, A.J. Epinesa. Care to talk about this play, and will it be a possibility of bringing him back next year?
Well, again, I'm not going to get into each person's specific situation. Listen, we want as many of these free agents back as we can. That said, there's only so much right in the bank. So I thought A.J., along with a lot of members of our defensive line this season, had one of their better years. And I think it goes back to development. I think it goes back to mindset. I think it goes back to, some of the pressuring we were able to do, some of the blitzing where, you get more one-on-ones when you do that. And so I think Coach Washington and Coach West have done a really nice job, and the commitment of that room as well. I saw a renewed commitment this year, and with that came more from a process and preparation standpoint into what they were doing, and that led to some of the results on Sundays.
John, what is your message to Josh? Obviously playing in these big moments, he is a lightning rod for both praise as well as criticism. What do you say to him now as the team faces another offseason?
Yeah, much like my job, right? This is heavy as the head that wears the crown, right? In terms of you're a leader, right? And so as much praise as we both get, is as much criticism as we get, and you have to be okay with that. And he is, and I am, and he's made a ton of special plays, and I love the way that he's continuing to grow through situations and experiences. When he came here as a young man out of University of Wyoming, it's to play and execute and win in the NFL. The way he's grown and at times put this team on his shoulders, I don't think anybody can do that like him. And you saw him the other night. He was special in a lot of instances. Are there some plays he wants back? Of course. Are there some plays I want back? Absolutely. But again, it doesn't stop here. And that winner's mindset that he has, that I have, that we want our team to have, is what helps us get to that next level.
Like the winner for the team in general, you know, you mentioned so much the winner's mindset. How do you translate that to the field? So it's not just.
Well, it starts in our inside the building, inside the walls, right? It's part of our messaging. It's part of, hey, you go out of practice, you make a mistake, and it's, hey, yeah, that mistake is not acceptable, but let's not make it again. And it's take a risk. We want you to take some risk. We want you to go for it. We want you to play free and be detailed and all those types of things, right? And tighten up the little things here and there from an execution standpoint. But that mindset is important, and that's you do it enough, you talk about it enough. You have leaders like Josh, in particular, that play that way and lead that way. It just becomes part of the overall culture, and then it leads to me more and more success on the field. Thank you. Good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.